Twin girls were denied boarding, but when their CEO father made a call, the entire flight was grounded. It was a crisp Friday morning at John F. Kennedy International Airport, and the terminal buzzed with the usual chaos: rolling suitcases, hurried footsteps, and the distant hum of airplanes preparing for takeoff. Among the travelers, the Fitzgerald family stood out, not because of their attire, but because of the two petite twins in tow. Emma and Olivia Fitzgerald, identical in every way, clutched their boarding passes tightly, their small hands trembling slightly with excitement. Their father, Richard Fitzgerald, was a name recognized across the corporate world. As the CEO of Titan Corp., a global conglomerate worth billions, he was used to commanding boardrooms, not airports. Yet, today, his influence would be tested in a way far removed from spreadsheets and shareholder meetings. The twins had been looking forward to this trip for weeks. It was their first time flying alone with a chaperone, and the excitement of visiting Disney World made them nearly bounce with anticipation. Richard had entrusted them to the care of Margaret, a seasoned nanny who had accompanied them on countless trips. All seemed set for a smooth journey. That was until the incident at the gate. Emma and Olivia, both 10 years old, approached the gate attendant, their boarding passes clutched tightly. Margaret followed behind, carrying a small backpack filled with snacks, toys, and a sense of duty. "I'm sorry," the gate agent said, scanning the passes again. "There seems to be an issue. These tickets, they appear invalid." Margaret frowned. "Invalid? We booked these months ago. Flight 217, non-stop to Orlando." The attendant shook her head apologetically. "I can't let them board until this is resolved. It could be a system error. You'll need to wait for supervisor approval." The twins' faces fell. "But, we have to go," Emma whimpered. Olivia tugged at Margaret's sleeve, eyes wide. Margaret tried to calm them. "It's okay, girls. Let's wait a moment. I'm sure this will be fixed." Minutes stretched into what felt like hours. Margaret attempted every protocol, calling customer service, speaking to supervisors, even showing printed confirmations. Nothing worked. The gate agent, though polite, was firm. Boarding was denied. Back in the private lounge of Titan Corp., Richard Fitzgerald was immersed in a high-stakes meeting when his phone buzzed incessantly. It was Margaret, her voice trembling with frustration and worry. "Sir, there's a problem. The girls can't board. They're being denied." "I've tried everything, but..." Richard felt a surge of anger. Not at the airline, not at Margaret, but at the sheer absurdity of the situation. He ended the call with a calm, chilling promise. "Stay there. Don't do anything. I'll handle it." Within minutes, Richard's assistant was on the line with the airline's headquarters. "Mr. Fitzgerald is on line 1. He would like to speak to the CEO immediately." The airline's CEO, a composed man in his 60s, initially brushed it off. "Mr. Fitzgerald, I'm aware you're a significant client, but we have policies." Richard's voice was steady, but it carried an unmistakable weight. "I'm aware of your policies. I'm also aware that my daughters are 10 years old, fully booked, and entitled to their seats. Resolve this immediately, or no flight 217 leaves today. I'll be personally on the tarmac until this is settled." There was silence. Then, a pause that felt like an eternity. The airline CEO, knowing the Fitzgerald name, realized the gravity of the situation. Titan Corp's contracts, their private fleet orders, and decades of influence hung in the balance. One decision could cost millions, or worse, a reputation. Moments later, a flurry of activity erupted at the gate. The flight attendants whispered urgently, the pilots were consulted, and the ground crew scrambled. Orders were transmitted down the line. Flight 217 would not depart until the Fitzgerald twins were aboard. Back at the gate, Margaret and the twins watched in disbelief as the boarding process reopened, the staff moving with surprising urgency. The twins ran toward the plane, their faces lighting up with relief and delight. Margaret followed, carrying their backpack like a trophy. On board, Richard watched the scene unfold via a live feed from the airline's internal system, a privilege few had access to. The twins waved at the cameras, their smiles brighter than any sunrise. As the plane taxied to the runway, the airline CEO personally called Richard. "Mr. Fitzgerald, the matter has been resolved. I apologize for the inconvenience. Flight 217 is ready for takeoff." Richard's reply was quiet, measured, but laced with satisfaction. "Thank you. I hope this serves as a reminder that when families are involved, policies must meet compassion." The flight, of course, was delayed, and news of the incident leaked quickly. Social media erupted with speculation. "Billionaire grounds entire flight over daughter's boarding issue," read one headline. Some criticized Richard for flexing his influence, others admired a father willing to do anything for his children. The twins, oblivious to the storm, simply enjoyed the in-flight snacks, their eyes wide at the movie screens and tiny pillows provided by the airline. By the time Flight 217 finally departed, the airport had become a whirlwind of reporters, passengers, and airline executives. Behind closed doors, the airline reviewed its protocols, realizing that a simple system error could have escalated into a PR disaster. Hours later, as the plane soared above the clouds, Emma turned to Olivia. "Can you believe it? We almost didn't get on the plane." Olivia giggled. "I know. But Daddy saved us. He's like a superhero." Margaret smiled, her heart finally at ease. "Your father does have a way of making sure things go right, doesn't he?" The flight continued without further incident. The twins pressed their faces against the windows, watching the horizon turn shades of orange and pink as the sun set over the Atlantic. Richard, seated a few rows back, reflected quietly. Power and influence could buy many things, but what mattered most was the trust and safety of his family. Today, he realized, both had been tested, and both had prevailed. When Flight 217 finally touched down in Orlando, the twins were the first to disembark, laughing and skipping toward the waiting taxi. Margaret followed, keeping a watchful eye, while Richard, unassuming as ever, allowed himself a rare smile. He had turned a frustrating, unjust situation into a lesson about patience, persistence, and the weight of responsibility, not just as a CEO, but as a father. That evening, as the family settled into their hotel room, the twins were already planning their first ride at Disney World. Richard watched them from the balcony, the Florida sun casting golden light over the horizon. He knew that this story, the one where a father's call grounded an entire flight, would be retold countless times, but to him, it was simple. It was about love, family, and the lengths one would go to protect them. And for Emma and Olivia, the day would always be remembered not for the chaos at the gate, but for the heroism of their father, the man who stopped an entire world, just for them.